This hot, this the spot. There it is, pod.com. We're interviewing the best comedians, so tune in quick and get your ears receiving them. We talking about life and laughter stream right to you, from the microphone right to your home, dude. Side note, this might get embarrassing, but no, don't sweat, yo, cause there it is.
Welcome to the There It Is podcast for lovers and dreamers and me. I'm your host, Jason Farr. Let's do this. Thanks so much for being here. I am really excited to share this episode with you. It was another one that was recorded last week, or a week and a half ago, in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's with Henry and Maari Suorsa. They are of Nameless Numberhead, which is a sketch duo that they created, and they perform a lot at Theater 99 down in Charleston. They are fantastic people. I really love seeing them perform, and I'm really lucky that I know them because they are really great people and performers. There are another couple of those people that I say they're my favorite people on stage and favorite people off stage because they are just that great. Real quick, though, why don't you check out thereitispod.com for old blogs, and you can also check out old episodes on iTunes and SoundCloud. Please subscribe and leave a review. I would love that if you would leave a review. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook at thereitispod. Well, this is a really great episode. I really enjoyed having these kids on the show. And at the end, I think we even had some live guests. And it was just the people who were in last week's episode. I don't even know if you really hear from them too much. But it's a really insightful, really fun interview. So why don't we just get right to it, folks. Here's my chat with Henry and Maari. Henry and Maari. And I looked at Maari and said Henry, and I looked at Henry and I said Maari. That's so great to have you both here.
Thank you for having us. We're Mickey and Minnie Mouse. You can
very interchangeable. We'll answer to anything.
I'm very excited because we're down here for the Charleston Comedy Fest, and we're having a great time. And unfortunately, I think we're performing, and you were performing. Did you perform?
Yeah, I think they did that on purpose.
Yeah, they put all the good stuff together.
In a cross town. So you
have
can't
to
even
choose.
I'm glad that I saw you at the New South Comedy Festival because that was a really inspiring and fun show.
Yeah, that was a blast.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally.
Really cool.
And it was sometime before that you all were in Greenville and you did a workshop with us. So I've really enjoyed you all a lot as performers and people.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Virtual. Thank you for having us.
Oh, gosh. I was thrilled to get you on. So let's go a little back to younger versions of yourselves. And because you're already pretty young. And, get an idea of where you came from as far as performance is concerned. You have to go back to your second grade play, but we'll start with Maari here.
That's where it starts.
That is.
It always starts in second grade.
Yeah.
But where did your training start?
Official training was college. Mm-hmm. I had done sports all through high school, but knew that when I graduated, it was going to be theater and comedy.
Great.
I just wasn't into high school theater, so I took it upon myself to do stand-up.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so my mom looked at a community college's class list and saw it was actually just called Stand-Up Comedy 101. And I signed up, and I was
What college was this?
Northern Essex Community College in New England.
I'd never heard of a college having a stand-up
it was weird.
class.
It was a weird class.
Yeah, our college has a pretty cool comedy program.
Well, that was college. This is when I was in high school. I was 16, and my mom was like, cut out the newspaper thing and was like, is this something you're interested in?
And you did that.
And I was like, yeah, I just got my license. I should drive myself to a night class.
Yeah.
With
that
all
is
these
stand-up
adults.
comedy run by Dave Radigan, and there were 4 other dudes in the class, and one worked for OnStar, and they were all like over 50.
It sounds like a Dickens tale.
It was
of,
insane.
like Radigan.
And I was the one thing to be like, Maari, stand up and tell your jokes. I'd be like, well, I'm a high school senior.
Yeah.
It was not on anyone else's level that I was like, okay.
Right, yeah. Oh, that's funny though. So you were doing stand-up. How long did you stick with stand-up?
Probably just 2 years. I did stand-up when I was in high school, junior and senior year, because that's all there was. So I would drive myself to these like weird clubs around New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And then once I got to college, I was a theater major and immediately knew I was never going to get cast in anything and that I was bottom of the barrel theater kids and I didn't know jack about anything. And saw an improv show and like it exploded from there.
Yeah.
Like I went up to the guys taking tickets and I was like, "Are you having auditions?" And they kind of give me a hard time. They're like, "Oh, do you think you're funny? You think you should come to this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have to." And so I got in. Like
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
They let me into the long form troupe.
Oh, cool.
My first try, and then the next semester I had auditioned for the short form, and so improv was my life.
Oh, that's interesting that you went long form first.
Yeah.
Because a lot of places are short form first,
Yeah.
I would imagine. And a lot of people I talk to, they'll say, I was doing short form first, and then they started doing long form.
It just happened to be the show I saw first.
That's cool.
It was the one show that I went to, and I think the next week or something
You saw a short
were
form?
auditions. Yeah.
Oh,
and I was
okay.
like, this is the one.
That's
But like
funny.
having no idea what it was, went into an audition and they're like, we're going to play a scene called Info Desk and you need to have a reason to be here, like something you need from us. Like didn't know yes and didn't know
Right.
like what a character, like what a good idea would be.
How was that, not having yes and ingrained in you? I mean...
It was great. It was probably the most fun I've ever had, and I still think about it because I came in as a nerd with a python, with my arm in a python's mouth, saying I needed to return this thing. And that was my idea.
Good,
And-
yeah. So you weren't... See, well, you initiated, so you didn't have to worry about
you had to come up with
denying
your
them.
thing.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically, I don't remember who was behind the desk, but someone else in the troupe, a senior, Nate Crawford, jumped out of his seat and tagged out the other dude so he could sit behind the desk and also play a nerd so that we could like match each other and like nerd out. And like he would make me look super great.
Oh, that's great.
And I'll
That's
always
awesome.
remember that he did that because like not even knowing what he was doing, now looking back I'm like,
Oh, that was
holy
really
shit, that was
taking
awesome.
care of you. Yeah, so cool.
Like from the beginning. But yeah, just made improv my life. Never did a theater show once in college. I committed fully to improv.
And you,
That's awesome.
Henry, you were doing this very awesome. You weren't you in Chicago at one point studying?
I was.
Was that where you started?
No. Well, I was kind of full on theater for a long time.
You could tell. I think when I first met you, I told you that. You could tell
Yeah.
that you have a theater background.
It was definitely a lot of theater training. I mean, like early on, and then getting super into it in high school. It was kind of like anything that I could do in the theater. I was all over it. And then college was kind of when the transition happened of just, you know, I liked theater, but there was something kind of
missing.
missing, I guess. And like when I started learning about improv, it was through Theater 99, and I saw this show recommended to me actually by a theater teacher who was like, "Oh, you should go see this show, Shakespeare Abridged." Which
Okay.
is the
Oh,
British
I've seen
Shakespeare
that
Company,
before,
those
yeah.
guys. And so they basically take all the works of Shakespeare, condense it into a 2-hour
Yeah, it's
show.
a fun play. I saw it at my college.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody does it now, but at that time, it was relatively unknown. I went to go see Greg and Timmy and this guy Stephen Shields do it, and kind of like, what is this all about? This is kind of like theater, but it's like loose, and it seems
Right.
like they're making this stuff up. I mean, it was a completely scripted play, but since they had improv training,
They
it
knew how
felt-
to deliver it that way. Yeah.
it just felt like really
That's the
loose
same
structure.
with Swingers. That's like the movie
Yeah,
Swingers
absolutely.
because a couple of those guys, you know, Vince Vaughn, Jon Favreau, did improv first, and one of the things people say about that movie is that they thought they were improvising the whole time, but it wasn't.
Right.
It's that they knew the characters really well and they're improvising.
And that's also
Yeah.
and that's the truest way to like perform and connect is
Yeah.
is just, you know, play a character and just kind of live as that character for a bit. But
yeah.
from that show it was definitely like, whoa, this is a world that I would love to know more about. So I sought out like improv shows and classes and sketch and kind of like just immersed in that world. Ultimately led me to Chicago. And then
And you were at I.O. there?
I was at I.O. I did like directing shows at Second City, and then we did a show at Annoyance as well.
Oh, okay, cool.
We're kind of all over there.
Awesome. Where did you two meet?
In Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were at
I was at the Annoyance.
At Annoyance. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, but we were in a theater company that kind of merged the North and the South in Chicago. It was two guys. One was an alumni from my college, UMass Amherst, and one was an alumni from Henry School College of Charleston. They started a theater company in Chicago that devised original pieces through improv. And both of us have really similar stories about graduating college, going to Chicago because that's where the alumni go, and you kind of feel like you have a base, and that's where you go to study comedy. And as soon as we show up there, somebody shakes our hand and goes, "Oh, I know who you are. You're in the next show." And both of us are like,
Immediately
"What?"
recruited. Yeah.
Like Henry had this experience exactly a year before me and was in the company, and I show up and someone's like, "Oh yeah, you're in the next show." And I was like, "What's the name of it?" Like, just tell me that. They're like, "Yeah, it's not written. You're gonna improvise."
Yeah, I showed up I was working with a theater company there and taking classes at IO. And it was like, hey, this company, the New Colony, is doing this show. A bunch of like the CFC people I knew were going to see the show. I was like, yeah, I'll go check that out. I show up to the show. It's the very first show of this company. And I get there, and like an old stage manager of mine from CFC was working the door. She was like, "Oh, hey, Henry, what's up? I'm told that your ticket is free tonight because you're in the next show." And I'm like, "What?" Like, that's how I'm hearing that I'm cast in the show, is that I get a free ticket to their first show.
That's wild.
It was crazy.
That's gotta be a lot of fun.
And I was like,
was awesome.
super green in Chicago. Like, I had just gotten up there, and like the first 2 months were like super rough, where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I've made a horrible mistake. I'm so broke.
Okay.
And like, I spent all my money on improv class, and I'm living in a shoebox, like sharing a bedroom, like sharing a studio apartment with my best friend, and we're just both being like, it's cold, this is terrible. And then you go to a show, and they're just like, you find the people that are like, yeah, you're here for a reason. Like,
Right. That's
Yeah. Wanna work
awesome,
with
though.
you.
That's awesome, though. So it made you feel a little bit more
absolutely
grounded once you get.
Well, from there, I mean, I feel like once you find a tribe,
Right.
you know, you can start connecting that way, as opposed to if you're just going it on your own. You kind of have to find everything on your own, and if you find a people that kind of support what you're doing and what you're into, it's easier to make connections. And so that's essentially how I started meeting everybody, was through that, and then also through improv classes, and then ultimately that's how Maari and I met, was doing.
And then you
doing
felt
shows
like
and-
you had another tribe, a new tribe that you're
New tribe.
beginning together called Nameless Numberhead.
That's right. Get that new tribe.
What was the experience like? What was the experience like of meeting and then starting to perform together? Because did you started your training, Maari, at Annoyance, and then you started your training at IO.
Yeah.
Was it such a different perspective that
They're different schools of thought,
Yeah.
for sure. Like, the Annoyance is Mick Napier's baby, who is the, like, take care of yourself, come on with a strong character, like, relationship kind of philosophy. And IO is all about the form and the game and the group mind and the, like, making other people look good. It's like, you
take care of them.
right.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. You'll look good when they look good. And then
Right.
everyone else is like, no, come on, like a strong fuck people. Come on.
Yeah.
So, how did you find that you had similar sensibilities to be able to perform together?
I think our lives make us more similar. We're both the babies of the family. Two older siblings and then a decent gap, and then us. So I think we kind of grew up performing. Our parents are kind of like on the sillier side. Like, kind of all grew up watching the same movies and kind of learning the setup of a joke or knowing what's funny before you actually really understand what it is.
Yeah, that's that stand-up background probably helped you with that.
Yeah. So I think, like, we like physical gags. We like stuff that our dads would like. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, I think we have a wide demographic of people who like it because it's not geared towards any one person. I think we just think funny is funny. So that's funny. We're coming out of a show and it's a bunch of like moms being like, we loved it. We're like, great. That means my mom would love it. Like, and that's excellent.
I'm also thinking back to those first few times of performance, because when we met, we weren't performing together. It was like you were kind of assigned to the new shows that were coming out, and so we never did a New Colony show together.
We never did a show together.
But what happened?
It wasn't until we stopped kind of performing with them that we kind of leaned into each other, because we've been dating kind of on and off, and we're like came up with an idea for a show kind of in the New Colony style of like, we could improvise this. And it was Henry and I in a coffee shop late night writing about what if when you met someone, when you had sex, you morphed into the same person. Like, you would be way more picky about who you slept with. It would almost be like an irreversible marriage.
Yeah,
And
okay.
so, like marriages, it would either work or it wouldn't. So you would be destined of like, oh, you chose the right person and your life is going to be good, or your bodies would physically reject each other and you would explode. So, like, this is the concept that we're coming up with. And I call my brother, like, we're not even dating at that point. I call my brother and I was like, I met this guy. I was like, we came up with this great concept. I was like, we're going to write this show. And I told him exactly what I just explained. And my brother was like, you're never going to write that show. He's like, you two are into each other. And you're doing this weird thing about figuring out what the two of you feel about relationships. And I was like, no. I was like, you're wrong. I was like, this is going to be a show.
That's so funny. But
And then we wrote it.
3 years later, I mean, it only took us 3 years.
3 years later,
to
we did write the show.
rehash that concept. We did sit on it.
that's
for
a great
long time.
concept. I do really like that concept.
We wrote it as a musical and performed it at the Annoyance when the new Annoyance opened.
Yeah, the concept changed. It got a little watered down. I mean, it would have been awesome to have done it full-fledged original idea, but
Well, the Netflix version can be.
right.
Yeah. We're in pre-production right now.
Or the CISO version.
Pre-production.
Robert Downey is attached.
Yeah.
What?
This homeless guy we found named Robert Downey.
Robert Downey's
junior.
Not a junior.
Robert Downey
yeah.
III.
No, I'm also just kind of thinking back to that time. There was like this flood of, even before we were doing show concepts together, there was this kind of like culture in Chicago. These like underground shows started bubbling up, and so there was this place called For Rent, which was your buddies found this storefront and just put up a curtain in this place, and they had brokered a deal with the guy who ran the place. It's like, I wanna rent this for actual money, but it's not renting now. So as long as I can keep a For Rent sign in the window, you guys can perform here. And we would do, and so like the new kids who were coming in, some of whom got put on teams and some of who were like, you know, rejected by the programs more or less, or like didn't make a team. And like in Chicago, that's like do or die to a lot of people. Like if you go through a program and you don't make a team, it's like, I was the worst. They don't like me, and I'm funny. And so, but it really creates this kind of like edge of like, well, if you really do love this, you'll go figure out your voice somewhere else. And so a lot of that was happening in Chicago. So For Rent popped up. New Colony did like these after act shows that we were pitching. That I remember like
It was almost like a not a talent show, but it was like, what are you working on? Like, what do you have? Like, one of our friends tried stand up for the first time there, and now he's like insanely
he's living in New York
successful.
and has a career doing stand up.
But like because after
And that
the
was
show,
Jerry Seinfeld.
And that
was Jerry Seinfeld.
That was Jerry Seinfeld.
good for him. He never calls me back.
He never changed.
But yeah, it was just like this thing of we're all like these creative people, and depending on what show is going on, you might be working in an aspect you've never done. Like I did costuming for a show just because I was kind of interested in it, and more so they needed someone. So it was all these people being like, well, I really like to perform, but for now I'm just the script supervisor. So after the show, we would tell the audiences, like, stick around, we've got people doing stuff.
Just weird experimental.
And people would do music, we would do improv, people would do stand-up or
sketch or premise-based improv. Like we just come up, oh, here's this concept, it's really stupid, and we go improvise it, and it like becomes a sketch. And so like a lot of that was starting to happen, and then places kind of popped up and fell by the wayside, and ultimately this guy got some buddies together and opened up a place in an art gallery called the Upstairs Gallery.
Okay.
And that really became the hub for like 3.5 years. That really became the hub for like experimental work, and it was like a huge home for the underground scene up there. And everybody just kind of came to shows. Any show was possible there. Everybody did super weird stuff. And it was this time where you were like most inspired by your friends.
Yeah.
What your friends were doing. Like you went to go see your friends' shows because they were doing cool different stuff, and it infused you with a new energy, made you want to do stuff. Because sometimes you go to the bigger theaters and just being like, well, this is, just another improv show, and it's good, and these guys are good at improv, but it doesn't really do anything for me. My brain's not turned on, and
there's a thing that happens, and even the building itself putting that pressure on, being like, well, this is a paying audience.
Right.
And everyone's like,
so you better step it up.
Right.
And everybody just beats themselves up after the improv shows at the bigger houses. It'd be like, you step off stage. I played on 4 teams over there, and it never changed for me. I did 4 different groups, and you would either step off stage after a good show and you'd love it, or you step off stage after a bad show and be like, we're never doing this again. Like, this is the worst team, like the worst group of people. And so it was just such a weird high and low.
Yeah.
And
I have that kind of experience too. I'm one of the people in my company that's always saying, well, we are making people pay to watch us do this, so we better take it seriously.
Right.
And I'm lucky that I'm on a team where everyone agrees with that.
Yeah.
But it's just that sometimes I'll have conversations with somebody, and they're just kind of like, you shrug, like, whatever, just like, whatevs.
Yeah.
And I would, like, it would be a conversation with multiple people, and I would say, we're making people pay to watch us do this, so I think maybe you should care a little bit more than that.
yeah.
And I have no bones about that. I do agree with it. I don't want to take the fun out of this.
Right.
But at the same time, I think there's a certain responsibility that we have because, and I've said this previously on another episode, but that we're asking people to spend their time with us. There's so many things that people can do. And I'm saying spend an hour with me and pay money to watch me do this.
Yeah.
And I better take it seriously enough that I'm honoring your time and honoring the stage a little bit. But I definitely don't want to take the fun out of it.
Right.
There's something else you were saying there about being inspired by your friends that reminds me of that movie Midnight in Paris, which spawned this big discussion amongst different groups. You'll hear somebody talk about this at some point if they're talking about this movie. If you could live in any era, what era would you want to live? And somebody was saying, because of the inspiration of that movie, certain eras where art was sort of like such a big thing, and like, oh, you could live when all these people were doing all these inspiring things. But I kind of feel like now is as good a time as any time, because you can still be so inspired by great work that's out there now, and they're still your peers. I think that's just the whole point of the movie is that the grass is greener on the other side is a myth.
Yeah.
And so if you're saying, oh, I want to go back to the French Revolution, like whatever, not the French Revolution, but
Well, absolutely, because on a totally not comedy related note, like if we could only zoom out on the era we're living in,
right,
people are going to look back on this era in time as like the information revolution. Like you think about how quickly the internet has come in and impacted all of our lives and changed the entire world and the entire way we communicate. It's like, if you ever look back on another era and be like, those were the golden days, it's like we're living in a crazy time of like advancement and human technology
Completely
and like all this crazy. And sure, like science fiction tells us it's all going to go horribly wrong, but that's another adventure that we get.
That may not be how it really goes.
Yeah.
It depends if Biff becomes president or not. That's a
which
Back to the Future 2 reference.
That he has.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
So, a question I want to ask you as performers, as you perform together, how did you find a sensibility that worked for yourself? I know we sort of touched on that with just the way your lives were, but on stage, the type of moves that you make, do you have certain principles that you follow, or is it still just so hard to pinpoint it because of how connected you are as people?
We were just talking about this yesterday.
Yeah, there's definite go-to moves. I've always had a hard time with references. Mm-hmm. Like, they can make my skin crawl so quickly. Mm-hmm. Like, even in an improv scene, if somebody comes on, they're like, "Hi, I'm Martha Stewart." I'm like, why are you someone? Why are you someone who exists? It's like, that's such a cheap laugh to me.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Something like,
I wasn't sure if you meant like references in, am I gonna be able to reference this thing I've not seen?
Anything. Like if we're on stage and like suddenly we're anything having to do with Harry Potter, I'm fucked because I don't know anything about it, and everyone's like, ha 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 ha.
Oh, I don't like
now
that
what?
when people are like. I don't like that either when people say like, when they discover on stage that you don't know the thing that they just brought into the scene. Mm-hmm. So then they start playing with it as like, hey, why don't you name that spell that we all know from Harry Potter and we know you don't. Yeah. I don't like that move because then that's like the opposite of what is. Yeah, and then also like principally speaking, you're not making that person look good. You're making them look bad. You're like deliberately making them look bad for a laugh. Yeah. And it's a cheap laugh.
I think I avoid them because I don't want to put a timestamp on anything. Or I want everyone to be able to laugh about it. Like, if Henry and I listen to like a National Lampoon record, like it's just silly for the sake of being silly, and that stuff is still silly. It could have been written yesterday. So we write stuff. It's like we might reference like cell phones or something, and it's definitely this decade, but it's not like someone's gonna
not be able to fully relate.
In 3 years, be like, who's Michael Phelps? Or like who? Like I have to Google something because I just listened to this thing.
Who was that socialite?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that one-time thing of being like, that was hot for a minute. Mm-hmm. So I think we one of the things that I definitely am aware of is trying to create more characters rather than do anything based on people who already exist.
Yeah. How about you, Henry?
I think at the core of everything that I like to write, or kind of like where we find the best material, is like finding something that people do that is incredibly stupid, but they've never taken the time to self-analyze it as stupid.
Okay.
So it's like I'm trying to think of an example.
Or now we've passed it as normal.
But now
we've chosen to find it.
So I'll use this example. So the sort of like nervous laughter that we may encounter with a stranger in line. It's like, were you in line? Yes, I was in line.
and you why are you laughing? That's funny.
Why the hell are you laughing? And then so it's like, take that little thing, and then that is now the seed of like a sketch or something that we do.
And I see that in your own work.
So just take something that everyone does all the time, that they never see it as weird. They just do it, and it's I think that also harkens back to the philosophy of Nameless Numberhead. We're just doing these things, beep, boop, boop. That's
anybody. A very good way to break down when one of the main things we were saying coming out of the show was beep, boop, boop.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yes, that explains it. Now you know.
No, I think what you're talking about, I remember an example is that sketch where you are playing someone who's bumped into his mom's friend, his mom's best friend from college, who's talking to you, a 30-something-year-old, as if you're still that 5 or 10-year-old boy that they once knew. Yeah. Hilarious sketch, and that's something that everyone has experienced.
Right.
And it has a great pacing in it as well. So it's taking something that people already hate probably themselves for the same reason that you're bringing it up.
And you do it, and you'll see it. Even if you see it within yourself, you know you're gonna do it again.
Yeah.
And it's just captures that frustration of trying to relate to someone that you haven't seen in 30 years, but also being polite. It's like, oh, come on.
Gosh, that's a very funny sketch because it is that thing, exactly as you described. That thing, we all do it. We're all gonna experience it. We're gonna do it ourselves one
I feel
day.
Like that's where we relate to people the most with our material, is like finding that thing that's like, oh my god, I do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes great stand-up and makes great observational comedy.
That's
is like
the thing,
pinpointing those things that make people go.
Well, it's relatable.
That's something I do that. I know that.
We've dubbed it voyeurism of the mundane, which is like, it's so everyday, it's so basic. It's like, as soon as a stand-up starts talking about life on a private jet, everyone's like, done. I'm done with you.
I don't get it. You're rich.
Well, it's kind of like,
Oh, isn't that boo-hoo?
That happens to a lot of rappers.
Funny.
Yeah, like rappers at first might be talking about like the tough life they were living.
Yep.
But then when they move to Connecticut and have a huge mansion, like an Oprah-sized mansion, and they're talking about like going to the club, they're going to the club now is being super fancy. They are royalty. And the average person cannot relate to that. And that's why, like, some of those artists fall off at that moment.
Yeah.
Once they've forgotten how to experience life the way the people who've been listening to them for a couple of a couple of albums, it's they lose them once they lose that work.
That's why hip-hop is better than rap. I'll say that here.
No,
I'll say that now. And stand by that.
I totally agree. No, that's big. That's why. What is it? How many years after the previous Tribe Called Quest album? 20 years.
Oh my god!
And then they come out with an album that still sounds amazing, and it sounds like it could have come out 2 years after their album.
Right.
Like it could have come out 18 years ago, but also sounds like it could have come out the month it came out.
And at the same time is incredibly relevant.
Unbelievably relevant, and such a good album. Yeah. If it doesn't get Grammy nominations, then we'll know it's a sham.
That's right. It's all a lie.
And it is a sham.
It is a sham. Let's go ahead and say that.
Yeah, it's a shame.
I think one of the things that, because I try to perform with Justina, and when we're in a group, it's fine. We've tried to do a two-person show, and it was a little bit harder to do. And I think a lot of times when we perform, there's offstage stuff that can get in the way of just like, oh, I don't want to upset them.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't want to do something that they don't think is funny, or not understand what he's doing, and then like mess up his thing. That happens in improv in general. Of I'm gonna be neutral because I don't want to mess up their thing.
Yeah.
But then you think about it as a couple performing, that is heightened so much, and it's like so much more anxiety is involved in it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you all experienced that helped you get through that, or did you not really have a problem with that?
It is a show-to-show struggle. So we both have very distinct strengths. Henry came from a self-promotion, kind of go-getting attitude from college. Like, he knows how to write press releases. He knows how to reach out to papers. He knows how to Photoshop posters. He knows how to write a blurb and like do that side of it on top of knowing how to write sketches.
That came out of just like not really having a program or not having any kind of structure in play. Like I'm very like envious of training that Maari got in college because she had Mission Improbable. She had this thing that she got to kind of get initiated into, and it was already a functioning thing that already happened. In Charleston, nothing like that has happened. There have probably been like 20 improv groups at the College of Charleston, and they live and die with the person who started them.
Yeah.
And it is all based on the initiative of a person. If they can rally, then they can do it. Like even after college, like starting sketch groups, it was very much just like you kind of just have to take it into your own hands and figure out how it happens.
Yeah. So we were both very distinct outcomes of our training. You having to like forge ahead, and I was already in this thing that existed that was like, oh well, it'll just get done. Like, we'll have an audience because somebody made a poster, and all I had to do was like take a staple gun around campus. Like, I'm so fine with the manual labor side of things. Anything that takes a little bit of forethought or consideration or like brain power, I'm like, can I just hang up the thing? Like, can you guys make it? Like, I would so much rather do that. Like, I've kind of taken on the props mastering side of it. When we do the curtain, like I'll put together the curtain, and then Henry on the other side is like the tech side. So now we have this well-oiled thing of like, we're coming in to set up. I'm setting up the staging. Henry's setting up the computer part and the looping pedal and all that thing. But as far as writing, I mean, it's still nerve-wracking to like give your idea to someone, because if he doesn't laugh, I'm gonna feel awful. And a lot of the time, because we're so close, the same way you wouldn't laugh at your own idea or you're trying to like work something out, you're presented with a thing and you're just like, okay. Like, you're trying to figure it out, and the other person's like, you're not laughing.
You don't like it. And then you figure
and so we're trying to figure it out, or I'll have a premise and be like, take this, Henry it. Just Henrify it. You put your jokes, I'm like, there's something here. It's not not my voice. I don't know what I'm doing. That is really hard.
Yeah, that is really hard to present your idea and then be able to do what you would do with someone you're not in a relationship with, right? Like if it's just your pal that's also in the company, if you say like, here's an idea, and they said no, then you wouldn't care. Or if they gave you an idea, you're like, nah, then you both would be fine. You'd be able to move on after that. But when it is like your partner, your life partner, then it is a little bit of, hurt feelings can happen more.
Well, it's funny, as I'm thinking about it right now, I'm kind of reflecting on it. It's funny because it is, with sketch, it is the exact opposite of improv. Because I feel like in improv, you get into a rehearsal room, that's when you're clicking, it's at somebody's house, yes, there's nobody around, there's no audience, you're just goofing off, and you're yourself, and you're having fun. You get to a show, you have the audience, and then you all climb up and be like, okay, we better not, like you said, it's kind of like polite, like I better not mess up anybody's idea, they'll play safe, like you get into your head super hard. And then with sketch, it is, or for us at least, it is entirely reversed, where it's like, the writing room is like super stressful, where you're trying to be polite, you're trying to figure out how things work. You like Maari said, if you don't get the laugh from your audience of one, then it's like, oh, this idea is dead in the water. All right, back to square one. And then when we get all the pieces together, I mean, this just happened this week for the comedy festival, because we wrote an entirely new show this week and did the show last night.
Wow.
And by the time, it always happens, we get so stressed out writing it and putting it together, and by the time we put it on stage, we're having so much fun with it, and the audience is digging it, that it's like, oh, well, why do we
go through all that?
Why do you stress so hard the entire week before and just rather show up? It's so fun, and then it's worth it. But before, it's like, somebody was asking, they're like, somebody asked like what the process was. I was like, well, just get as mad as you possibly can at each other 45 minutes before the show.
And make sure you really dig into the semantics.
Yep. Make sure when you're explaining yourself, you clap your little hands together like you're talking to a dog. Like, speak sharply. And make sure they feel 2 inches tall. And then have a great show.
It'll be fine. That's all you gotta do.
Never film it, so it's almost like it didn't exist.
Yes. So treat each other like animals is essentially how to do good comedy.
But we're lucky, like, I don't think that we have any agenda. It's not like one of us has a sense of humor that the other one is uncomfortable going with. I think we've all been in that room where someone's like, and then baby Hitler comes out, and you're like, no, I never want to hear those words.
Or they're like, yeah, and then an abortion. It's like, why are we going
why are we doing that?
Ooh, shocking.
There are some groups that can pull that off. It's very hard and good for you if you can.
Yeah.
I avoid it because I don't think it's funny.
If you're on the same page with it, maybe it works. But it's like if you're trying to fit that into, just fit it in. It's like it usually does not work.
Yeah, I'm with you. So, there was a story you told Henry. This is an improv story that you once told. You both are great performers on stage. You have a great stage presence. And during your show, I leaned over to Justina and said, I want to do that with you sometime. Like have the connection that you two have on stage, but also doing just such a fun, playful, and good show. That you're doing together, and you seem to be on like the same page with each other. It's like super great to see. So I want to talk about stage presence and stage performance. And there was a story once you told Henry about being on stage with Scott Adsit.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You said that he has the most confidence on stage as anyone you've ever played with, or something to that effect.
Yeah, it was unreal. Harrison was in that show. It was like a jam at the end of a comedy festival here. And it was just a very specific moment being on stage with him. And it was one of those, like, you know, starting a scene. Mm-hmm. And I had come out first, and he came on, and we were just crouching and, like, we were eating something. And clearly, I had nothing. I was just editing. Uh-huh. And he looked over with this, like, super confident look, just, like, nodding and eating. And it was silent for a long time. I got a big laugh just because we were just eating there. Somebody ended up coming in and justifying the scene, but it was like this moment of total fear for me. I mean, pretty young improviser at that point, but he was just going with it. He was like, I don't care where this is going. I'm just here eating this thing. Like it was just amazing. It was
so
like
it was like that. I don't know what I'm doing, and then he came in and said, "I'll follow you into hell."
Yeah,
he's like, "Whoa, how are you that confident? I'm frightened, and I'm the one who started this."
Yeah, it was great. It was just sort of like this. Let's go with this. And we didn't speak a word. He just like shot me a look, like, yeah, we're doing this.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine having that kind of
it was unreal
presence of mind on stage. And that's one of the things I'm trying to just get better at. Of course, that just comes with time. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of times people in general sort of avert their eyes. And I like eye contact, but it can be real easy to not make eye contact in a scene, especially if I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
Where I'm gonna look away from you because I'm just like, I don't want to embarrass myself, and if they look in my eyes, then they'll know that I'm embarrassing myself,
right.
Something like that. What are your thoughts on how to just gain that stage confidence and presence?
Eye contact is super huge. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like a TJ Jagodowski. He says everything in the scene starts with eye contact. But the best kind of philosophy, this is probably what I've adopted most in my improv, at least. I'd probably bring it into sketch a little bit, but was advice from Jed Eveleth, who was basically like, treat not only like your scene partner, but the audience as like your big brother. Like if you're the little brother, you're like trying to make them laugh. Like you're trying to like, you want them on your side. And even like your scene partner, like you want to like have fun with them. You're trying to like somehow gain their approval or permission to laugh. Like I feel like improv a lot of times can be this rigid like, well, am I establishing a character here? Am I agreeing to the world? Am I doing my checklist?
Right.
And it's like if you go in there with a sense of play and fun, and it'd be like, I'm gonna try to like mess with my scene partner. I want to try and make them laugh, or I'm gonna try to just get on the level with them. Like we are playing.
Yeah.
This is pretend. like, let's just have fun, usually it just frees up all those checklist thoughts. And you end up being fine. Like, you end up establishing the things you need to establish because you enter with a sense of play rather than a sense of thought.
Okay. And then I guess with a sketch, it's not much because you already know what you're gonna say and do.
Right, but the same would apply because you don't think about the words.
Right.
Like, that kind of harkens back to the theater company that we used to be a part of. We devised it through improvisation, and sort of even going back to like Complete Works show. It's like even if it's scripted, like the best way to communicate that script is by making it seem so playful and like comfortable as if you're just making it up. You know, so I think it translates to sketch as well.
Right.
Because it's like we have this concept, we have these words.
We know
like,
what we need to say. We could just make that eye contact and say, let's have fun.
Right. Don't just say words, like play with the words.
Right,
you know?
yeah.
Like,
think about a little deeper, yeah.
I love interacting with the audience, but I think my stronger entrance is anytime we play a character. I've got that school paper report shake. Like, I go out, if I'm holding anything, you'll see my hands going. I don't care how many people are in the audience. There's just something about taking that first step on stage that anytime we have to play ourselves and genuinely welcome an audience, I look like a fool that has never seen humans before.
I don't think that.
It feels that way. So I appreciate that I can hide it, but anytime we can just kind of start the show either with like music or movement or any type of character, I am infinitely more comfortable for the rest of the show. So that...
Well, being your true self is like where you're most vulnerable.
Yeah,
I guess.
But I'm fine doing that in the middle of the show. Like, we've taken a break where we're gonna talk to you now. Like, once we kind of already have that rapport, I like to look at them and reference people. I try to like point to people in scenes like while he's talking and like try and get them on board.
Oh, that's funny.
But
I think I've seen you do that.
If we're coming out like fresh off the top, like that's my like scare zone. No, what it is, it's like as soon as like it's not even putting stakes on it. Like, I always liked performing, but in school, if I knew I was being graded or judged or that like I was expected to like give information or someone was listening,
it's suddenly more intense.
It's like the voice starts going and the hands start going. But
I feel that too. I mean, if there's any kind of like responsibility or thought that I'm gonna mess it up, that's also another like, just to kind of bring it back to like the philosophy stance, like, because teachers will say things to you over time that you just kind of keep in your mind. But another one that stands out to me really heavily, Craig Euler had a awesome rant in one of our IO classes where he's like, it's pretend. You can't pretend wrong. You're pretending. Don't go up. And then he does this thing. He's like, I'm pretending wrong. Like, I can't do it. I'm messing it up. Because he told this story, like, he was on a team with Jack McBrayer for a long time. And he would never go out into scenes. He would never go out. He was on this Herald team. And he never did anything because he thought he was going to mess it up. And so that was like a big mantra for his class, was just like, don't ever like not do something for fear of like, kind of going back to the idea of like that polite sense of play of like, I don't want to mess up anybody else's idea.
And I told a team I coached that basically that same thing of like what everyone's always worried about in an improv scene is just not messing up.
Yeah.
And you can't mess up, so don't worry about that part.
Right.
You know? Yeah. That's what's holding people back the most, I think, with performance, is that they're concerned that they're going to mess something up.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that goes with if you're performing on a team or performing with your life partner, then there is that concern. It's like, I don't want to mess up. Right. And there's all this anxiety tied up with that.
Right.
But you always come off stage, you never remember what you did. You always remember like the brilliant thing somebody else did.
That's
no
true.
one ever is going to come off stage and be like, I did a really great job back there. It's always like, oh, so-and-so crushed it with that thing. Or
true,
like, that was a great thing. It's as focused as you are on yourself.
It's only the negatives.
You're only like going to remember what other people did. Be like, that was so great.
Yeah. You are going to say that, and then about yourself, you're only going to say, oh, I didn't do well.
Yeah.
Or I was happy with my show tonight.
Yeah.
But you aren't. You certain like other people are not looking at you and saying, "Oh, they screwed up here and there."
Yeah.
Most of the time, unless like the obvious mistakes are made or something like that. But the vast majority of people that we're performing with, they are not gonna look at us and say, "Oh, they just screwed that scene all up." They're just saying,
Also, like if
"Here's the
you're
fun stuff."
if you're a good improviser, you're gonna enjoy a choice. Nothing is more frustrating than trying to improvise with somebody being polite and not making a choice. Like, it is yes and for a reason. Don't just yes. Please add information. Don't just come in there and be like, absolutely, that's exactly what we're doing. Yeah, we are doing this. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, give me something. Like,
this is,
throw a wrench in the. I love it if it's like, if it is messing it up, because then that's the new like journey you go on.
Yeah,
like,
if you say
that crazy thing.
Right, if you say, okay, now what? Or if you just say, yeah, and then to repeat what the person said, then you're basically telling that person, you need to come up with all the information for this
You're
scene.
driving.
Right. And I don't want to, you shouldn't want to put that off on other people.
Right.
I think fear can make me accidentally do that sometimes. So that's never my intention. But I was in the jam last night, and I was just like, I don't want to mess up. And that was like one of the only times I've really thought that going into a show. Yes, was last night doing the jam, because it's like all these people I admired a ton, so it's like, I don't want to.
No, totally. I
don't want to make a fool out of myself here.
I had an instance of that. I mean, I feel like anytime people come in from like New York, like we improvised with the UCB Buzz Off Lucille ladies on
I love them.
Thursday. And I had that moment too. It's like, they're really good.
Yeah.
And it's like you get into a scene with it and you just have fun. It's like, this is great.
And I think with Molly, I would definitely. Molly Gaby is the one that I really know before I met the other. Like the other people in Buzz Off Lucille I met last night.
Cool.
Molly I knew. I've known for a little bit, and if I was going to be performing with her, I would be pretty nervous. Now, if it was like before this last time you were in Greenville, I would have been nervous for sure. But now I feel like I'm comfortable enough with you as people that on stage I'd be like, this is going to be fun. So I would feel a little more like, I'll be able to not like.
I think that's also the nervousness of the jam, right? I mean, we came in for the Greenville jam.
I had the wall on that guy. There's also just so many personalities that you're like, I'm going to go out every time.
If you don't meet the people beforehand, or if it's a quick green room, like, hey, all right, let's do this. And then it's like, I have no idea what you're all about. Like, we didn't meet. Okay, let's go up there and make shit up. It's like you didn't really build any kind of human foundation. So we're going to go make this, like, we're going to go pretend and be silly. We're going to go be not ourselves.
That's,
I mean, I went in, I was just telling, I was saying this in the Charleston episode, that we were, like I knew for 24 hours that I was going to be performing, and I spent that 24 hours saying, I hope I don't screw up. It was like a wave of like, sometimes it'd be kind of high, like, no, like it's going to just be fun. You just do the basics, you'll be fine. And then it went to like, but what if I'm performing with or in front of Greg and Brandy? I'm gonna screw up, But it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun. Well, when it comes to process, maybe that's where we can, because we are running at the end here, at the end of the episode. Ooh. So when it comes to process, maybe we could create an idea that we could make a sketch out of. Like maybe it would be that thing that everybody does. And we can try to like break it down. We don't have to write a sketch, of course. Just like an idea, how, like our approach to it what that would be. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something that's been on my mind lately.
There was something that was on my mind recently, and it was one of those things I should have written it down. I didn't, and so now I'm not thinking. I'm not sure what it is. It was something like. oh, this is maybe too unrelatable, but you know, sometimes if you're like the second person in line, like you're like once the person who's up front is getting checked out in line at a store or something, or the post office, if you're that second person, you're just waiting with anticipation, and so you keep thinking like, oh, now it's my turn to go. Oh, it's not? Oh, okay, I'm still just standing here. Oh, someone else walked in here. Oh, let me walk over to the counter. Oh, no, they were just walking
when they
through.
do the fake out, like they go to their thing,
Right.
like the light doesn't go on, or they're just like we've all been on that side of the thing and being like, I'm gonna walk up to my post and I've got this thing to do, and they're gonna like walk over. They think that I'm here to serve them.
Right.
That because now you're the leader. Like you have the mentality of the whole line.
Like,
You're
I'm supposed to go.
Yeah, if I don't go, they're gonna think that I'm holding up the line.
The bank where I bank, it's a small company called Bank of America. When I go in there, there's always a line, like huge line, and there's always like one teller, and there's 5 like spots for tellers. And what will always happen without fail is there will be someone at the door. Can I help you today? They have like a pad. Hey, can I help you today? Yeah, I'm just looking to deposit money. Oh, okay, great. Well, then you're going to want to get in the line.
Right.
And they're standing there with a pad.
I need you to get behind that.
I need you to get behind that. Yeah, exactly.
Right
It's
now.
like, why are you helping to check people in?
Yeah.
Like, I guess she's hoping people need to talk to a banker about opening up an account or getting a credit card or whatever it is. But she is standing there being the most unhelpful person, telling people to get in line.
Yeah, how is it
as the line grows?
How is that ratio bigger? Like, infinitely you're going to get more of your own patrons trying to bank rather than one person
Right.
wandering in being like, I thought I'd check out your bank today.
Right, yeah.
Like, let them wait in line and then tell you once they get there and you go, okay, go into one of those glass boxes with
Like,
this dude.
They've just really not measured their demand statistics. They're
No,
like in there.
maybe that's what their job is.
Yeah, and it always seems like somebody will like go back behind the counter to one of the teller stations and like take a call and like put up the next attendant please sign, and there's just one attendant.
Well, we just had some friends come in, Jason Underwood, Miley White, Justina Sparling. I don't know if you are familiar with her, listeners. Previous episodes. But another idea I had that we could maybe create something on, a sketch idea on. As I was walking over here, I saw a couple, a very like sweet couple, like having a moment, like a real, like not like anything lascivious or anything like that, but they were just like in the moment, having like a kissy face moment. And my initial reaction,
In the rain?
no, it wasn't raining when I was walking over.
Very cinematic.
But that would have been a very John Cusack movie thing to do if it was. But it was not in the rain at the moment, but they were just having a real kissy face moment, and my initial reaction was to make a joke, be like, oh, nobody needs to see that. But it's like, that's exactly how Justina and I are, you know? So why was my initial reaction to be like, oh, come on, guys. And then, of course, I was like, nah, that's actually very lovely.
Because everything sucks when you're not doing it.
Right.
It's like, if you're biking, cars suck. If you're driving,
Bikes,
pedestrians are the
people,
fucking worst.
yeah, people on bikes is like, get out of here, bike.
If you're sitting at a restaurant and the table next to you gets food, well, I don't have any food. Like, it's everything that you don't have, you're like, ah.
You see like somebody walking their dog and they're like, you know, pooping on the sidewalk.
You're like, oh, why can't I?
Why do they do that?
Yeah.
You know, it's like
I want to poop.
Yeah, for a sketch, I would just see a guy walking down the street, just like seeing everything, and be like, ugh, get a room. Like, ugh, get a leash for that dog.
Get a bathroom, dog.
Get a bathroom. Well, what kind of room? Get a homeless dude. Get a dining room.
He's eating on the sidewalk.
It's like everybody.
Or you see a guy
Get a phone booth.
see a guy playing the fiddle, like, get a theater.
Or get a Carnegie Hall. Do something like
get an
over
orchestra.
Yeah, what else would somebody be doing on the street? someone's running. Get a treadmill. Like, get off my sidewalk. How is
Get
this
a
guy just being so...
Get a track of your own. Or if someone's driving, then it's like, get a video game simulator.
Yeah.
That's a terrible one.
Get a bike. Drives my bike. Get a car. Like, so indecisive. He just wants everyone to not be doing what they're doing.
How do you end that?
I almost feel like you would stumble upon like a woman breastfeeding in public and be like, now that's something I can support.
Yeah. Or
give a thumbs up.
Or you look at the baby and you go, get a restaurant.
Get a restaurant.
Right, get a restaurant.
Let's see.
Or he just falls into an open grave.
That's a better
And the
end.
tombstone just says, get a life.
Yeah, wow.
That's the better end. There it is. I was going to say something much worse than that. Thanks so much for being here, Henry and Maari.
Thank you. That was
for having us. This is awesome.
That was super fun.
This was. Those are two awesome people. I hope you enjoyed that episode and learned a lot. I know I sure did. It was really great to hang out with them and see them again, and I hope that is not few and far between that I get to do that. Well, if you want to know more about them, you can go to their website for Nameless Numberhead, numberheadcomedy.com. There's info about shows on there, but why don't you check out their YouTube page, Nameless Numberhead. So just go to YouTube, type that up, you'll find them. There are not a whole lot of groups called Nameless Numberhead. They are really great. You're going to really enjoy their stuff. If you want to find out more about this podcast, you can go to thereitispod.com. You can also go to Twitter and Facebook and follow and like us at thereitispod. You can follow me on Twitter as well at JasonFarJokes. Well, next week's episode is with another improviser and instructor, and she's fantastic. She's from Raleigh, North Carolina, and her name is Jairus Donovan. She's in Raleigh now, but she was in Chicago and LA at one point. You'll hear all about it next week. She is great, and you will love it. Until next time, be good to each other.
The music for the theme song was created by Neil Brooks. The rap was written and performed by Nick Acevedo. The logo for There It Is was created by Jeff Prater. The There It Is podcast is produced by Jason Farr.